essentially the motivation for this video is to record something that's similar to what Nicolas has done for Windows. You know, how do you start contributing to BTCPay Server development? One huge difference between those two videos will be, you know, lack of sexy French accent. I can't compete with Nicolas. But what I can do here in this video is show how to do the similar setup only on Linux. Yeah, you obviously want to have Visual Studio, but you want to have Visual Studio Code, and that can be an advantage. Like, I like how lightweight the whole thing is, and you know, how the way that Git is integrated, for example. I love that in Visual Studio Code. So you lose some, you win some. That's the way life is usually. But essentially what we will do in this video is just, you know, already written down here. It's installing .NET Core, installing Visual Studio Code, and installing Docker Engine and Docker Compose. I may go in different order than our man Ravi did in his guide. Be sure to check his Twitter feed. I mean, it's it's lit, man. Look at the people. Look at the people. Dun 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 dun. Yeah. So once we're done with installing everything, maybe we can celebrate like this. Let's start by installing .NET Core. It's always good to go from SDK, and Ravi didn't link directly to download and install page, but you know, just 2 clicks away, and we'll essentially register Microsoft key and feed, and then install the .NET SDK. So let's fire up the terminal, copy, paste. This is actually, you know, most of this video will be just copy pasting stuff, and it's pretty much what programmers do anyways, right? You just Google, find the answer to your question, copy paste. Luckily we have Stack Overflow these days, so install, transport. So it seems we need to do these last 2 commands. Type them in, mix it up a little bit, you know, a little bit of copy pasting, a little bit of typing. And now that we have updated all the package lists, we're ready to just install .NET SDK 2.2. Yes. And I'll try to keep this video below 10 minutes, you know, so that it's not too long. And most of it will actually, I think it will just be waiting on all the commands to execute, because I am running this in virtual machine. So but on, you know, on your own laptop or computer that you're using, should take even faster. I'm really blown away nowadays how easy it is to set up development environments. Back when I was starting up, I mean, it wasn't too bad, but we had 6 CDs to juggle, 3 hours to install Visual Studio. But yeah, we actually completed 1 step already. Let's keep going, keep going. .NET Core installed. Let's install Visual Studio, and we can download the package, but let's stay in the terminal. Ubuntu. Yeah, this one looks good. Let's see. Yeah, this is pretty much it. So you will update the packages index, install dependencies, import Microsoft GPG key, enable Visual Studio Code repository, and then finally, you install the code. So let's be sure to select this properly. we already have some of these dependencies, but you know, okay, yeah. Since we have all of them, gotta catch them all, right? Key added, adding Visual Studio Code repository. And we'll just then sudo apt update apt install code. Four minutes into this part of the tutorial, approximately 5 more minutes left. Had the long intro with Ravi's tweet, Indians dancing. So code, and there we go. We already have Visual Studio Code. So because this is a Rockstar guide, we can do a standard hello world, but this is a Rockstar guide, so we'll need to have Rockstar code base, and what better code base than BTCPay Server, right? But in order to download BTCPay Server code base, we'll need Git, and that should finish pretty quickly, so that we can do git clone server. And there we go. We now have BTCPay Server directory. We have the code base, so we're saying Visual Studio Code to load the current directory. And there we go. So 4 projects. Let's get, I always, if it's .NET Core, ASP.NET solution, you always go controllers first. And recommendation pops up right away. You don't even need to do much, just click and it's already installing. But if you're installing, Visual Studio Code and you want C# support, you would just go here, in extensions, go C#, and then this OmniSharp thing should be first one over there, and it's already finished installing. And yeah, this is what I'm saying about development today. You don't even need to know what's happening, it's already offering it to you. So you're having some unresolved dependencies, you're having some assets. Yes, I want to add the assets, and I want to restore all the dependencies, because BTCPay Server, it's not massive code base, but it is decent sized code base, and obviously it has references some stuff, so it takes some time to just when you're starting for the first time, it takes time to download all the dependencies and include them so that solution can build. But you can see restore is completing, and it should take just a little while, but once that's done, we will actually be able to just build and start debugging, which again, I love it how easy all this stuff is. So done. And there we go. Well, now we're starting the debugging of BTCPay Server instance that we're running locally. But this will actually fail. Why? Well, we haven't completed the last step of installing Docker engine and then Docker Compose. Because if you go to BTCPay Server tests, you will see that all the dependencies like Bitcoin D, LND, and other stuff we launch them as Docker containers, and then BTCPay Server sits on top of all that and can interact with those dependencies. But because I haven't installed Docker but just started BTCPay Server itself, it will obviously throw some errors, say, I can't connect to these dependencies. So because we're way ahead here, let's not wait on the error, but rather get to installing Docker and Docker Compose. Night mode, yes. And installing Docker Compose, first we need to install the Docker. Ubuntu. And actually I think there is a, I don't think I know there is a way to install from without adding Docker's repository. So let's do that. So Docker install Ubuntu. Oh, we're way ahead of you. This is that error that I was talking about. So yeah, we'll get you Docker dependencies. Install Ubuntu. Let's see. Basically I'm trying to find there should just be one liner instead of all these adder document repository, this and that. It should really be just one liner. And this is it, right? We don't have old versions of Docker, we just want to install the Docker. There you go. It's one line, and then Docker service need to be run and start up. So let's go what it is. It's sudo apt install docker io. And this one shouldn't take too long. But yeah, this setup, what gets me is how easy it is to set up an environment like this and how powerful it is, because you can now develop microservices, like enterprise grade software. It's freaking hilarious nowadays. What's available just a few commands away. So sudo systemctl start docker system, nice. systemctl start docker, and we also want to enable, and there we go. That's up and running. Docker version, yeah, have it. So now the only thing left is Docker Compose, and it basically just is you're downloading the binary from GitHub and then adding execute permission to it. So we go paste Linux machine without curl, travesty. So install curl. Of course, we can't have Linux machine without curl. And now we can just go back, download the binary, and say sudo add executable permission to it. There we go. So now that we have Docker and Docker Compose, we can go to the test directory, and let's look at the Docker Compose file. Go. One thing is like Control T, and then you can navigate. Let's say Docker Compose, right? Docker Compose YAML. And one thing that we have here, we have this dev container that is not really a container, it just brings up all the dependencies. So instead of typing everything manually, you can just do docker compose updev to start all the required services. So that's what we will do here. Compose updev, and we get error, couldn't connect to Docker daemon. So you do what programmers do: copy, paste, and what you'll find is that our user is not added to the group. So this is what we need to do. We need to sudo user mod ag docker, and now if we try to do this again, it won't work because we need to restart the machine, right? So let's stop the video and return when everything is back up and running. And we're back. Machine restarted, so now we can go BTCPay Server, reload Visual Studio Code, and if we now go to BTCPay Server tests and do docker compose updev, we will see that this time it's working. So we are now pulling all the containers that we need. BTCPay Server Lightning, yes please. And it will take a little bit longer the first time because you're downloading all the containers, but once you have them, every next start is much quicker, unless Nicolas does his thing and usually updates new version, pushes it, then you need to re-download the containers, but just the difference actually, so it shouldn't take this long. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it. You now have the environment up and running, and not only can you play with BTCPay Server, but Nicolas has left this nice README where he explains how you can use Bitcoin CLI to do some stuff. Not some, but all stuff that you can usually do with Bitcoin D. One of the things that you will run into during testing is that you need to send payment to some address. So that's how you will do it actually. You will just fire up the terminal, go to test directory, and then you can do docker Bitcoin CLI send to address, and then address amount, and you'll be able to test. One thing to keep in mind there is that if you want to generate the blocks, actually before you had, let me just see, Bitcoin CLI generate 10 blocks, but that was depreciated in new version of Bitcoin D. So I saw that Nicolas made the generate script, but this is only for PowerShell, so maybe that's what I can do. I'll do SH version of the script for all of you guys. But yeah, I think address already in use. How exactly did this happen? Well, it will be mystery forever. But yeah, if you're having trouble with Docker, sometimes you need to do standard thing of restarting. And but yeah, once you have this 101 blocks generated, we are now able to start debugging. Just go debug, start debugging, and this time BTCPay Server will be able to connect to all the dependencies. Postgres for database, then yeah, BTCPay Server doesn't directly connect to Bitcoin but rather does that through MBX Explorer. So we now have that up and running, and all the connections will be successful, and we'll be granted access to our own sweet little local BTCPay Server instance. One of the things here also is you have this just my code is enabled for debuggers, so a lot of the symbols are not loading, and as a result your terminal gets spammed like crazy. So you can't really see this stuff from BTCPay Server. You would need to know what you're looking for, like I do. So I'm looking for this line on which port BTCPay Server is actually listening. The way that you can address that is you go to Visual Studio Code, go to Launch JSON, and then you can add logging and say that those modules, you don't want that displayed. So if you go and you start debugging, or just press F5, which will be faster. If you do this, now your terminal shouldn't be spammed with a bunch of orange messages. You know, orange messages bad, orange coin good. Yeah. You want orange coin, not orange terminal messages. But yeah, see, we have BTCPay Server up and running, port 14.14.2. So, do I want personalized experience? No, I don't. I want to see my BTCPay Server. There we go. Your local instance that you can play with. And I usually recommend that, as I said, any .NET, ASP.NET Core solution, you always start from controllers. Or if you're not, solution is not using MVC, but rather those arrays or pages, you would go to, there will be a pages directory, and then views will have their class that backs the view. But essentially, in MVC, controllers and then views. Home controller is the default controller in ASP.NET, and then index is default action. So also the way that in controller that you can navigate actions is you press Control T, then you do at, and now you can quickly switch. You know, I want to go to app method, I can do that, or I go to index and I see that first we have some domain mapping, but if that fails we just render home view. And if I go to home view, this is my HTML, so if I want to change anything, BTCPay Server, hey demo almost done. And then if I save that, go back to page, refresh the page, you'll see changes here. And notice that you can only change the views. So if you make any change in the code, like then it needs recompiling and restarting. So if I do anything here, like I would actually need to stop and restart. Also, debugging is integrated. So if you put a breakpoint here and I now refresh the page, now I'll get HTTP request. I can debug it. I can see the properties of this current contacts. What is the request? What is the response? And cookies, everything else. Like, it's so easy to inspect. And I know query string is empty. It is empty, but let's say I go back here. I say hello Rockstar. way better than hello world, right? My breakpoint again gets hit. Can wait on variables to load, or I can say, okay, let's see, query string, yeah. Or you can even go, here you go, request query string, and you'll be able to see, what is the query string of the request. Keep doing debugging like this, and all the standard stuff, stepping over, stepping into, and so on and so forth. But pretty much, yeah, that's it for start. Now you have the environment up and running. I stopped the debugging, so now it can't reach the server, but from here it will be standard C#, .NET Core stuff, and yeah, I can easily find the video. Starting to develop with Visual Studio Code .NET Core, and you go to videos. I'll need to find which one I recommend, but something like this. You go with Microsoft MVP and founder and CEO of .NET Tricks, right? So you can watch that and get up to speed. One thing that people suggested is that maybe I set aside some time and show how I'm doing coding. I would be able, for example, to go through issues, or you guys vote on some issue, and I can tackle it, record how I'm developing the feature. But so yeah, if this video gets enough interest and feedback is positive, you're actually enjoying watching me do all this stuff, I can actually can do that. Developing with Rockstar, right? Otherwise, sorry, you'll need to develop with our Microsoft MVP founder and CEO of .NET Tricks, which can be good. It's in its own way. He probably has a lot of videos. See, maybe I don't speak in very clear language, but that's it, guys. We are pretty much done. Do the same thing, get set up and start coding. And yeah, so much for the promise of less than 10 minutes video, but I did add a few tips. Needed to use time on that. However, if you want to do all this but much faster, here is the script that you can execute, and then instead of copy pasting everything from all the different sources, you can just execute this and it will do the same thing that we have done through this whole video, much faster, which is what programming is all about, right? You take different parts, just put them together and make everything work much faster. But yeah, I will link this script also from the guide, so you have much easier time on setting up this on Ubuntu. It won't work on different Linux distributions, but that's why we have that other longer than 10-minute video part where you can see the details of what we're doing and tweak them to your Linux distribution. Okay, that's it. Peace out.